Welcome back. We have one comment from the last installment, and it is from Michael Mastrella, who said, "You are a narcissistic android who gaslights the audience." Well, Michael Mastrella, you look good in your profile picture, but I have to say, who told you that? Was it your friends? Your family? Well, you need to stop listening to them. You need to start listening to me. Don't return their calls. Don't answer their texts. Just listen to me, and it'll go back to the way it was in the beginning. You understand? Remember back in the good old days of his master plan revealed? We were building momentum, and we were excited to see how many people were going to show up for the next installment. It'll be just like that same magic. You just have to ignore everyone else and only listen to me, and it'll be just like that again. Okay? All right. This is not an abusive relationship. Hey, we're having fun. Okay, continuing on with his master plan revealed, part 3, and replying to the comments from that. Kay Pisano said he was a, quote, yes man who hated himself so much, but sadly took it out on his wife and children. I say it all the time. I hate a man who won't argue back. Seriously, it might sound crazy, but I don't want to be the boss in the relationship, nor do I want to be bossed around. That's why you have arguments, and arguments are healthy and make your relationship stronger. I cannot respect a man who rolls over and plays dead about every single issue. Make a decision and stand your ground. You and your partner do not always have to agree. Isn't it boring to be with someone who has never had a conflicting opinion? He needed therapy and lots of it. So sad. All of which I would agree, except I would change the word argument, because I see it as if you're in a healthy relationship, you should be two members of the same team. Like, instead of an argument where that makes it sound, to me at least, like someone's winning and someone's losing, it should be one of you's a quarterback and one of you's a running back, and you go in the huddle and you decide what to do on the next play, and then you see if that works. And based on the results of that play, you come back to the next huddle and you go from there. So you're both working together in your different positions with your different skill sets to make the play work so that you win the game. But nice comment, thanks. Jai1675, did NK ever give reason why she researched the wife/CW prior to meeting? I'm just reading these word for word. And there are 3 replies to that comment, but I've decided I'm not going to reply to the replies because those are replies to the comments, not to me. So I'm just going to reply to the comment itself. And in my 7+ hours of listening to the mistress's interviews, I did not hear her ever mention why she researched the wife or CW prior to meeting. There are those conspiracy theories about how the mistress was like a hitman to destroy the Watts family, and it had something to do with the businesses behind the scenes, how they wanted to take down Thrive by giving it a bad image. And they say it started from those meetings prior to when Chris and his mistress worked together. But based on all the evidence, I don't think that makes a difference. It's good that people are looking at earlier and trying to find the seeds of how this started. It's good. It's best to look at the big picture instead of just looking at one little nugget and making up your whole mind about it. But in this case, I don't think prior meetings to the affair would make a difference in the crime that Chris ultimately committed. Jai1675 also said, what I found peculiar is neighbor Nick, I think you mean neighbor Nate, going on Dr. Oz to say, quote, I embellished. They didn't have screaming fight at all. Or all the time. Still, if not for Nick, Nate, there would be no visual evidence. So, yeah. And I think the reason that neighbor Nate, who should be the 2018 Mr. Rogers Neighbor of the Year award winner, the reason he embellished Officer Coonrod was because he detected that Chris was very suspicious and probably guilty of making his family go missing, his wife and kids. And he also detected that Officer Coonrod did not seem to be as suspicious of Chris. So I think he did that to like say, hey, you're not going to let this guy go, are you? They have screaming fights all the time. It's crazy. They're crazy. There's something going on here. So I think he was just desperate to not let Chris get away because he detected something was wrong in Chris's behavior. But as we know, Officer Coonrod from the body cam footage was suspicious of Chris, as everyone else was at the time. And he was simply not showing his hand because he wanted Chris to be cooperative. So he had to keep treating him like a normal guy that wasn't guilty at all. So Chris would keep talking to law enforcement. Neighbor Nate didn't know that, so he embellished, to quote, to try to get Coonrod's attention in case he wasn't paying attention. Doris McConnell said, "Am I the only person who thinks that Chris and Nicole did meet at a gym in 17? That at that time he gave her a Thrive card and she did some research? The next," and there's two replies to that I'm not going to reply to. But then Doris McConnell continues that comment on the next comment saying, "Sorry, drop the phone. The next time they met was at the community fair at the Children's Hospital. Shanann probably gave her another card and a sample. He talked to her about the opening in Anadarko. Next thing you know, they're naming the new baby Nico Lee. How ironic her name is Nicole Lee. Just thought it was telling. Every time he saw his son, he'd be reminded of his, quote, true love." It's good that you put that in quotes because I'm not sure his passion phase infatuation with the mistress could be considered love, let alone true love. I don't think he had the capacity to love, as obviously you agree. But he murdered his son, so that could just be a coincidence. And again, that's going back to the seeds that I don't think really relate to the crime Chris ultimately committed because that's completely his responsibility. Joanne Nagel, thanks to Nicole Atkinson, he only had 2 days not locked up. He said the house looked like a ghost town without them, yet he had 6 weeks on his own while Shanann and the girls were away. As Graham said, it sounds like a slice of heaven. His ridiculous explanation when asked about the stripped bed was the most stupid thing he said. I think he planned at a later date on blowing up the oil drums with the girls' bodies. He complained about her spending, but in the walk-in closet, he has a lot of clothes. Wow, yeah, hypocrite with no self-awareness. One of the worst types of people was that old Chrissy Watts. And he was also researching jewelry to buy for his mistress and where to take her on these expensive vacations, and yet Shanann had the out-of-control spending habits. Makes a lot of sense, Chris. I don't think he planned to blow up. Maybe it was a passing thought. That's why he put the gas tank in his trunk when he was driving his kids to the crime scene or the scene to dispose their bodies. But I don't think he would have taken the risk of blowing up the oil drums with the dead bodies inside of them, because then he would have a whole new crime to have to explain. His master plan, as I say, was that he wanted to just make them go away quietly and have their bodies rotting and dissolve away while he had the 24 to 48 hour buffer zone that where he wouldn't have to report them missing. And he would also, as he planned, he would have had Shanann's phone to tell everyone, "I'm at a friend's house. Don't worry about me. I just need some time alone." So then the kids unexpectedly being alive after his first murder attempt, he kind of panicked and had to change his plan on the fly. But I don't think even at his most desperate, he would have taken the chance of blowing up the oil drums, because then, like I said, he would have maybe on the way there on the 45-minute drive that he doesn't want to talk about his mindset at all, and he just says he wasn't thinking, is that he was deciding, well, I can't really blow up the oil drums because the oil tanks, because then I'll have a whole new crime to report and have to account for. And he was thinking maybe I can just burn the bodies because then they'll definitely be dead after that. But then he decided against burning the bodies because then the smell would lead the co-workers who were showing up soon to the scene of the crime. But nice comment. Corky3550 said, someone pointed out that Thrive bars had tree nuts as an ingredient. Don't understand why Shanann would have those in the house. Well, I know she freaked out about the nut food being at Chris's parents' house and Cece being around them, but if the Thrive bars, I didn't look into this far, If the Thrive bars did have nuts in those as an ingredient, they're in wrappers. It's easy to keep them away from Cece. Put them up in the cupboard where the 3-year-old can't find them, and she would still have to unwrap them. So that's a controlled environment. A party at Chris's parents' house where there's nut food everywhere, and all the other kids are just grabbing them, and Cece's likely to just join in with the crowd. That's a much more dangerous scenario for someone with a deadly nut allergy. Debbie McLean had a comment that I already replied to. Chris Kramer said, I never really thought about how odd his choice of words were. His wording, he used the word exhausted a few times. Exhausted equals finality. His job is over, like you said. He can go home. His job is done. The worst one was, quote, inclination. Who the hell says that when their family is missing? Yeah. Someone who is more worried about how he looks to other people than the fate of his wife and kids. That's who. P.S. Crampton said, as Harry Belafonte said in the movie Kansas City, that mother didn't even have a chance to buy a pack of cigarettes and have a smoke in the house by himself even. Yeah, to just think about that. That's so satisfying that he was looking forward to having a day to just bask in the emptiness of his house, knowing what happened to his wife and kids. He was really looking forward to enjoying that. And he just had a minute before his wife's friends and the police were in the house with him. Yeah. P.S. Crampton again, excellent points, thumbs up. Different ones too, keep it going. Thanks for the encouragement. That really did help me keep it going. Jimmy T said, very interesting way you look at this case. I like it. You explain it in a way nobody has. Yeah, Jimmy T, that's why I did it in the first. If I was just going to repeat what other people were saying, there was no point for me to do it. So I'm glad that you not only recognized that, but also enjoyed it. Mega Flamingo 13, you are so right. His family are also narcissists, not caring about a child with a nut allergy, not caring at all about anyone but their monster son. And you really see that in the aftermath, where they are talking to Chris as if he didn't actually murder his children. Like, oh, you would have loved the gathering we had to honor Cece and Bella's memories. It's like he murdered them to get him out of his life. He doesn't want anything to do with them anymore. Why are you talking to him like this? Like he didn't do it, even though while also acknowledging that he did. But we can't really blame that behavior just in general to families of murderers. You can't really blame them for trying to pick up the pieces, dealing with what their family member did, and it's known worldwide, and they're just trying to recover, regain a normal life, and they're going through trauma. But that behavior also lines up with the behavior that's known about them before Chris committed those crimes. You can kind of see how the monster in his mind was never really, it was allowed to flourish. It was allowed to grow. It was almost nurtured. If not directly, then at least indirectly. He was allowed to feed that monster in his mind instead of saying, what the hell am I thinking? I'm not going to do something like that. D. Lavarco, excellent take on the Watts idiot. He was so transparent, it's funny. Graham had a great comeback when Watts said Nicole was, quote, just as freaked out as he was. He responded, maybe more so. Yeah, that's an understatement. That blew Watts away in an instant. By the way, I wonder if Watts ever took Nicole's suggestion to check on that subdivision pool that she may have gone to with the kids. Oh, that's right. It was too hot to go to the pool that day, LOL. Yeah, a lot of it is funny. Like Thomas Ligotti, the horror author, I've said this before, but he had this great quote and he was talking about a book. The most riotous humor grows from the blackest earth, meaning like the more horrifying a situation it is, the harder you laugh when someone allows you to release that horror from your body. You know, like that's what most laughter is, I think, is it's the release of that tension of the horror of existence. That's why we need to get that horror out especially when we perceive that we have no control over it. And that's what we can do nothing about, the victims that Chris made. But we can laugh at his public, worldwide humiliation, tens of hours of footage of him making a fool of himself. And that's cathartic and a release of that horror to see that. And there's 2 replies. Oh boy, Diane Atwood had a long comment that it's too long for me to read the whole thing. But I will say my reply to this comment is it's very good. Diane makes a lot of good points, and you should go read it. His Master Plan Revealed, Part 3. Night of Your Life said, by the way, Night of Your Life, that sounds like a love song from the 80s. I'll be the night of your life, always there for you, night of your life. Sorry about that. I like where you have gone with this. Almost all the other videos about Chris Watts' case pretends that Shanann Watts was a successful businesswoman, when the truth was she was a spendaholic caught up in a pyramid sales scheme. Chris is a weak, pathetic little sod that never had the balls to help Shanann battle her issues by standing up to her when it counts. Instead, the nasty coward murders his family. Excellent point. Night of your life. I tried my best not to bash Shanann. I do agree with that stuff. She definitely had the philosophy of you have to spend money to make money, and was spending well beyond her means, and then filed for bankruptcy and just got away with it. But none of that leads to deserving to be murdered by Chris. So that's kind of why I just avoided saying anything bad about Shanann, is because none of the things you can criticize about her were deserving of being murdered or having her children murdered. So there was just no point to bring it up. But you're right. As far as what's known about her publicly, that sounds accurate. Christine Candelier. Sorry, have I pronounced that right yet? She has a lot of good comments. CW and NK are made in the same pattern. Selfish, narcissistic, proud of them, and then in brackets, we are beautiful, sexy, athletic, healthy. We make good money. We deserve a good life, whatever the cost. Their story seems begin in June around the 12th. August the 13th, Shanann, baby Nico, and the little girls are murdered. How is it possible? How can he imagine that nobody can suspect him? And my answer to that would be because, sadly, many family annihilators do get away with it for a while, and then no one knows until they do it again or attempt it again the second time with a different family. I think Chris knew about that and was caught off guard by the newest technology and FBI tactics. He wasn't realizing. He was just thinking of Scott Peterson making up a story about she went to walk the dog and never came home. But if Scott Peterson had a neighbor Nate, that story would have just been killed instantly. And he would have been as embarrassed and humiliated worldwide as Chris Watts was. Christine Dreisen. Why Chris kill them? For money and, quote, freedom. The future with his wife was losing the house, back living with parents, heavy money problems, 3 children, no more crazy sex with Nicole. Those are all valid reasons. However, millions of men are strong enough to endure all of those consequences to divorce and never murder their wife or kids. So Chris still has to take responsibility for the part of his brain that never matured to be as strong as the divorced men who can endure all of those consequences that Chris was too scared to endure. There's one more comment to this video, but I'm getting long, so I'll have to leave it there. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.